Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to be going over a project that I call Self Destructing Messages. So I'll start with this header file. There are two header files, two implementation files, and then two files that I test the functionality in. So to go over the first header file and the shorter header file of redact.h, we'll see that we have three functions that return strings, and they all are doing some form of redacting. And so within the context of this project, redacting, if something is redacted, its character will be replaced with a pound key, or hashtag, as us new gen kids say it. So if we are going to redact all characters, so if we're going to redact everything from a random string, that will turn into this, for example. So we have one that redacts all characters of a string. We have one that redacts only alphabetic characters or digits of a string. And then we have one function that takes in a string as well as a vector, constant reference to a vector of words to redact. So basically it will look through the string for words in this vector, which it will then redact if they exist. So if we look at that implementation, for redacting all characters, we just iterate over the size of the string, and we add a hashtag for each character and return. So that one's the simplest. Then for this one we have to do a simple check of if it's an alphanumeric character, then we'll put a hash, otherwise we'll just keep the character there. So this will keep like punctuation, for example, in the string. And here we have, we go through our words to redact, and we basically check to see if the redactable word exists within our out string. And if it does, we find the indexes and we kind of substring to get rid of it, essentially. And yeah, that's the redact set of files. Now we'll look at the self-destructing header file. So here we have a class of a self-destructing message, and here we're also going to be using O streams and I streams on top of strings and vectors. But we see that we're going to have some private data members of a vector of strings that'll hold messages, a number of allowed views for messages, as well as a number of allowed views left. And so essentially what we have here is if we have a self-destructing message, we're going to have the messages stored somewhere. Our self-destructing method, or our self-destructing message class will be initialized with a number of allowed views. So for example, let's say I have a vector of messages, and the messages are I, and then there's one that's like I am Alan, etc. Each one of these will have a number of allowed views initialized. So let's say I set the number of allowed views to be 2. That means that every time I view this once for the I, for my first object, or my first message, it will decrease its number of allowed views. So it'll go down to 1, and once it hits 0, that message won't be able to be viewed again. It'll kind of self-destruct, which is why this is called self-destructing messages. And so whatever I did has caused an error somewhere. Not sure I buy it. Yeah, there we go. But essentially we have our constructors here, in which we construct with a vector of messages, or we can create an empty self-destructing message. We can create a self-destructing message with our messages and our number of allowed views, and we can create a self-destructing message by taking in a reference to a self-destructing message. For our methods, we have a size method where we just return the number of messages that we have. We have the get redacted, so we're going to be redacting and returning a vector of strings. And we have a number of views remaining, which returns the number of views remaining for a message, and adding an array of lines, etc., etc. Operators and friends. So these operators will basically be explained in this implementation file. So here we also use some algorithms, which std swap is one of them, or actually I think the only one. But essentially we have a swap function where we swap two self-destructing messages, so basically swap the contents. As you can see here, we set the first one's messages equal to the second one's messages, etc., etc. And yes, then we have the no argument constructor, which just creates an empty messages vector as well as a zero number of allowed views. Here we have the constructor that will takes in the parameters and then sets them equal to the private data members. And this is our copy constructor. So it'll take one object, put all of its contents into the new object, and then for that one object, it will actually make it where all of its messages are non-viewable anymore. So that prevents the loophole of people copying message or self-destructing message objects in order to have kind of like an infinite or a loophole around viewing them a certain amount of times. Here we have our get redacted function, which will just use our function from redact.h or redact.cpp, which is to redact alphabetic digits. Here we have number of views remaining, really simple, which tells we pass in an index for a message and it'll tell us how many views left for that message. Here we have add an array of lines, so we are going to just add an array of lines. It's pretty self-explanatory. Here we have a operator so that we can it'll tell us what the message is at an index. Here we have the copy constructor, and here we have we take a reference to an O stream so we can output. And basically, to show all of this, because that's kind of harder to explain without the examples. So to show all of this, we'll just go to test our function right here. So I'll grab this right here, and I'll come over here, and I'll paste it right there. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And now I'm going to press ls, and I'm going to see that I have the executable, so I'm going to say ./a.out, and okay. So we can go through this. So our first, as you can see, our program didn't crash anywhere, which means that we got through all of our asserts, and or rather, I'm sorry, this test does not have asserts. Actually, we just compare it to the correct output. So to start off at the top, we have a vector of strings, so these are going to be our messages. The plan is go, attack at midnight, bring 97 cookies. So here we're going to be initializing a self-destructing message called SDM with those messages and 2 allowed views per message. So our size should be 3. We check at the top, we have a size of 3. We then are going to go ahead and see out views remaining on first line. So we have a vector of strings called redacted lines, which we redact all of the lines within SDM. And then we say string redacted first line is redact alphabetic digits at m of 0. So the plan is go. Assert redacted first line is equal to redact lines. So this is testing that our redact function is working properly. And we should have views remaining on the first line because we haven't opened any of the messages yet to be 2, which is true. And essentially all of these outputs can be checked. I'll leave the code for this in my GitHub, but or in the description, the GitHub link in my description. But basically it was just a fun little project in which I created an object that kind of destructs itself over time, and it's meant to store sensitive data that once has been observed by the right amount of times or by the right amount of people, it can't be observed anymore. So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions about it, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to share more. I kind of want it to be a short video, which is why I'm cutting it a little bit short on the explanation of this here. But yeah, feel free to ask me any questions, and thank you.